back in April. He's male, is age 45, makes $100,000 per year. He just started contributing to his 401k. He's maxing out, which is $18,000 per year that he's put in there. He's starting from scratch, so he has no other assets in there. He says he can make anywhere from 12% rate of return, but wants to be conservative and use 10% rate of return. I don't argue or fight with him. I just put down what he tells me. The employer matches 6%, which is $1,080. He wants to retire at age 65, and his desired income at retirement is $75,000. As you can see, he's going to have a nest egg, a nice little nest egg of $1 million. But that leads us to our first problem, which is he wants $75,000 of income for the rest of his life, which is a 7.3% distribution rate. At this rate, he's going to run out of money in year 13. So basically, he gets to enjoy retirement for 13 years and he has to go back to work. But the first problem here is his distribution rate. If you look at white paper studies or any Google it if you want, the maximum distribution rate that you should pull from any investment is 3%. It used to be 4%, but it's been reduced to 3%. So, for example, out of the $1 million, that's basically saying this guy needs to live off of $30,000 for the rest of his life, which is $45,000 less than what he currently wants. So that's the first problem. Is we didn't even talk about taxes. So I always ask in this situation, what is your current tax that you pay for your state and federal? And in this situation, he said it was $25,000. That's almost 25%, which is almost $20,000 of income that's going to the IRS. So that leaves him with $56,000 net income. So that's the second. I asked him, what's the question? Where do you think taxes are going in the future? Are they staying the same, increasing, decreasing? What do you think? He said, well, I think they'll increase in the future. I said, well, at what rate do you think, what percentage do you think they'll increase when you're ready to retire? He gave me the percentage of 40%, so I used his numbers. So that's another $30,000 that's going to the IRS. So that leaves him with net income of $45,000. So at this point, he says, looks at me like, okay, so putting away $18,000 per year, what in the world, how am I going to be able to have the $75,000 of income that I want during retirement? He goes, obviously the 401k investing is not going to get me there, and that's with a 10% rate of return. If we're more conservative and we use somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, like maybe 7 to 8% rate of return, then you can see he's definitely not going to hit his goals. So the solution is, what we can do is we can redirect his $18,000 that he's currently contributing into his 401k and put it into a non-qualified tax-free retirement account, which is what we do here with PHP. What this will allow him to do is it's going to allow him to have the $75,000 of income for the rest of his life. So it takes care of that goal. He's not going to have to pay any taxes. And if something were to happen to him prematurely, his family would be taken care of. If he were to live too long or during his accumulation phase, he get hurt from a disability, he's going to be taken care of. If he has a critical illness, long-term care event, any of those type of incidences, he's going to be taken care of. So this tax-free retirement plan is going to be able to cover multiple problems that may come up in his life. And if he doesn't, well, guess what? He's going to be able to enjoy a nice retirement, having $75,000 of income, tax-free, coming to him for the rest of his life. And at this point, I usually explain to the customers, I know this is a good scenario, this is something that you want to hear, but let me pull back on the reins a little bit. You got to qualify for this in the form. There's two ways you have to qualify. You have to qualify financially, and you have to qualify by health-wise. For example, financially, you got to make sure that you can afford $18,000 per year until you're ready to retire. The second part is you also have to qualify health-wise. If you, for example, if you tell me you're diabetic or high blood pressure or have whatever's going on in your life, I'm contracted with 32 different carriers out there. So whatever's going on in your life, there's a fit for you. Very little percentage, maybe 1% of the people that I see cannot fit with any of the carriers. Those are just a bad. They just have so many things going on in their life that they can't get covered by anybody. Like I said, it's only like 1%. But if you tell me you're healthy, you just had your physical, and your doctor said, hey, you're going to live for another 100 years, then that gives me a better idea of what company I should place you with. So again, I'm contracted with 32 different carriers. I'm not just a captive agent where I hope you can fit in this particular situation, but basically we have options here. So that's the second thing. So I just wanted you to be aware of that even though you may like the situation and move forward with it, you may not be able to qualify. Okay, fair enough. Excellent. One of my slides that I really enjoy. And if you want to back up the data, look at this, then you can see where it's coming from. There's everything cited on the bottom of the page. But why not do what the wealthy do? You know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Everything's been created. This plan, this program that we're talking about has been around since the 1800s. And so this is what the wealthy 1%ers have done. So what I want to do is I'm going to read you something here. I'll read it a couple times so it sinks in here. So the richest Americans own over half of the tax-free investment gains built up in life insurance. I'll read that one more time. The richest Americans own over half of the tax-free investment gains built up in life insurance. If we go down to the bottom here, 50 to 90 percentile own 38.5%. The top 10% own 55%. Families in the bottom half net worth percentiles own only 6.5% of this vehicle. So why isn't more people doing what has been working since the 1800s with the wealthy? The question is, it's simple. It's just we are not educated. The government doesn't want to educate us this way because they want the wealthy to continue to be wealthy and they want the poor and the middle class to stay in that range. They don't want us to succeed. So we have to educate ourselves. And I am that person who can help you become more educated and get you and your family where they want to be. So that leads us to our last slide. The last one basically talks about the 3 different buckets of money. We have bucket number 1, tax now bucket, bucket number 2, tax later bucket, and bucket number 3, tax never bucket. Have you heard of all 3 of these buckets of money? When I usually ask that question, most of the time they come back and say, well, I've heard of the tax now bucket and the tax later bucket, but I've never heard of the tax never bucket. And I usually say, exactly. That's because in school, we're not being taught. We're being taught these 2 buckets, but we're not being taught how to put our money in the tax never bucket. Well, like I said in the last slide, the wealthy know about this strategy and have been using this strategy for a very long time. So again, let's just learn from the best and allow us to be able to, instead of putting our money into, have you ever heard the saying, it's better to tax your seed than your harvest? Most people are going to say, yeah, absolutely. Well, these 2 strategies here is doing the opposite. What they're doing is they're taxing their harvest versus taxing their seed. In the tax never bucket, you're doing the quote. You're basically taxing your seed and reaping the benefits from your harvest in the form of not paying any taxes. So those are the 3 buckets of money. We can get into this a little bit later, but I just wanted to end on this point. My whole point of setting up this PowerPoint is to get the discussion going with the customer and getting them to realize that putting money into a 401k may not be what's in their best interest. Even though we have been told, put your money into 401k because you get a tax deduction. It's going to help out your family. Your company's matching you. You're dumb for not contributing to a 401k because it's free money. You're throwing money out the window. As you can see in our example during this PowerPoint, it doesn't matter with the free money that your company's giving you. You cannot beat taxes. Taxes will always be there and will always hinder you from getting what the lifestyle that you and your family want. So hope this helps you guys out, and feel free to always reach out and I'll be able to answer your questions. Take care, guys.